Well, hello there again, my young friends. Mr. Johnson from Johnsonland, Westlake High School, classroom 408, coming to you during a school day. I hope anybody that walks by the outside of my classroom hears me talking to myself right now. I hope they just think I'm crazy. You do have a test tomorrow. It is 69 questions. It covers all 4 of those tales. It would be best if you were to reread them or skim back over them before the test tomorrow. But maybe the least I can do at this point is to kind of take you back through them, give you a quick little review. I'll try to keep this reasonably short so it's not too long of a video. But if I can take you through all 4 of the Canterbury Tales as a quick little review, maybe that will help. And I'm going to do so and even refer to it in the book. If you have your book near you, that maybe wouldn't hurt. The Pardoner's Tale starts out. The Pardoner's Tale starts out on page 130. The 3 guys are in the tavern early in the morning before breakfast. They are experiencing lots of alcohol. There is a funeral that goes by, and they learn that it is another one of their friends who has died. And here in the plague, lots of people are dying. They've lost a lot of friends as young men. They leave the tavern just swearing left and right and making all kind of references to God's broken body with the intent that they are going to find and kill death. They leave the tavern. They do not find death, but at the bottom of page 131, they find a very old man, have a conversation with him. They're very rude to him, tell him he's so old, he should just probably go ahead and die. He answers them by saying, I wish I would have died by this point, but death hasn't taken me, and he goes through and gives them a little lecture about not being so rude to an old man. And when they hear him reference death, one of the 3, kind of the most vocal of the 3 guys, 3 young men, accuses the old man of being in league with death. You're a spy for death, and you're trying to kill us all. Tell us where death is right now. At the bottom of page 132, he tells them, if you really want to find death, I know where he is. He's at the end of this road, this crooked road. You'll find him waiting underneath a tree. He's not scared of you. He's there. So the 3 young men take off to go find and kill death. Instead of finding death, they find they find a very big pile of gold coins, and they decide these are our gold coins, so we're going to keep them. Of course, we can't take all these gold coins back into town right now. It would look very suspicious, so we should wait until the cover of night. In between now and night, we should have something to eat or drink. So they draw straws to see which one of them will have to go back and get wine, bread and wine. At the bottom of page 133, they do that drawing. The youngest of the 3 draws the longest lot, so he takes off and goes into town to get bread and wine. As soon as he leaves, the wickedest of the 3 says to the other, what we should do is kill him so we get to keep all the gold. They plan that when he gets back, one of them will wrestle with him, fake wrestle, and the other one will stab him. And the first one will stab him. They'll keep stabbing him until he's dead, and they'll get to keep all the gold for themselves. The youngest one on his way back into town has similar thoughts. Why should I have to share all this gold with these men, these other 2 guys? So he decides he's going to poison them, and you know the story. He goes to an apothecary and gets some poison, gets 3 large bottles, puts poison into 2 of them along with the wine, leaves the 3rd one unpoisoned. He gets back to them, they kill him, they slay him, and then they sit down and they drink the poison wine. They too become very, very dead. All 3 of the men at the bottom of the tree have found death, which is what they were setting out to do. But because of their greed, the story ends by saying they got their due. They got what they deserved for being so greedy. That, my friends, is the Pardoner's Tale. The Wife of Bath's Tale, starting on page 139, starts off with a young man, a young knight, walking down the road, sees a very attractive woman and tries to talk to her. And she refuses his advances, but he attacks her anyway, and he basically sexually assaults her and robs her of her innocence. The king, King Arthur, is supposed to have him executed, supposed to have him beheaded. And before that happens, the queen begs, let me, and the ladies of the court, let me make the decision for what his punishment should be. At the top of page 140, she brings him in and says, here's the deal, you're supposed to die, but if you can answer this question, what's the one thing that all women want? Jeffrey Johnson would be the answer today, but not then. What's the one thing all women want? If you can't answer that question, we're going to have to kill you in a year and a day. You can have a year and a day and ask anyone, go throughout the kingdom. If you can't find that answer, you're going to have to die. So he leaves. He goes throughout the kingdom. He finds lots of different answers from lots of different people. Wealth and treasure, jollity and pleasure, clothes, fun in bed, be widowed and remarried, to be cosseted, which means pampered, to be thought of as someone who keeps secrets. And then the wife of Bath uses the story of King Midas and his donkey ears as a picture of, as kind of an illustration of why, it's hard for women to keep secrets. And then at the top of 142, we get to where he's on his way back to the kingdom to submit to either being beheaded or hopefully having an answer that could save his life. He has no answer, and he knows that he maybe is about to be executed. On his way back on this last day of the year and a day, he sees 24 dancing ladies right at the edge of the woods. He goes up to talk to them. They disappear, and they're replaced by one very old, foul-looking creature. A fouler-looking creature could scarcely be imagined, it says in line 175, 176, on page 142. But he talks to her. She's an old woman, and tells her the deal, and she says, I can give you the answer that can save your life as long as you promise to give me whatever I want when the time comes. So he agrees to it. He's got nothing to lose. She whispers into his ear what she thinks the right answer is. Then they go to the queen and to the ladies of the court, and it's a big day. Top page 143. He stands up in front of all these people, and he says, the one thing that women want the most is sovereignty, is power, complete power over their men. When the ladies of the court hear this, they all agree that's a good answer. That's a really good answer. This man has saved his life. And immediately the old lady jumps up and says, I'm the one that gave him the answer, and he has to do whatever I said he promised, and I want him to marry me. This young knight does not want to marry this old, low-born, poor woman. He begs her, anything, I'll give you all my possessions, I'll give you everything, please don't make me marry you. And she insists not only that he marry her, but it says in line 242, I don't want to just be your wife, I want to be your love. I want you to love me the way knights are supposed to love their ladies. So she forces him to marry him. They get married. He does not have a big wedding. He has a very quiet wedding and just kind of hides her away. He's very embarrassed because she's so foul. Page 144, at the top of the page, she mentions that, she's just not happy. She's not happy with the way that he is treating her. She feels like he should be happier. She saved his life. Why are you being like this to me? And he tells her, really, look, there's basically 3 reasons I'm like this to you. You're very old, you're very ugly, and you're very, very poor, low birth. For me as a knight, to be married to someone of such low birth, that is just the worst. She answers these accusations, and over a couple of pages there, 144, 145, and 146, she just gives a big, long defense of her not being somebody that he should look down upon so much. And she goes through the top 146. She mentions, you shouldn't judge me so harshly for being poor. Even God himself, when he became a human in the form of Jesus, he was poor, he was homeless. So being poor makes me closer to God. But all that aside, finally she says at the bottom of 146, you accuse me of being old. Being old can be a good thing because then you don't have to worry about me cheating on you, me embarrassing you by having an affair. Plus, we've already been to bed together. I know everything you like. So, what's the deal? Why can't you just be happy in this? You can tell he's not happy and he's not going to be happy. So she gives him an ultimatum. She gives him 2 choices. Either you can have me, old, funk, nasty, disgusting like this, but do whatever you want in the bedroom, or you can have me young and pretty and probably going to cheat. Definitely going to cheat. You can't really have it both ways. I'm either going to be old and funk, nasty, and faithful, or I'm going to be young and beautiful and unfaithful. He literally doesn't know what to decide. At the top 147, he basically just tells her, look, I don't know. You're going to have to decide. You're wise. You make whatever decision you think is the best one. And when he gives her that power, she immediately just agrees. You give me all the power? He says, yes. Then you will get both. I will transform myself into a young, very attractive woman, but I will never, ever, ever cheat. Pull back the curtain. And he pulls back the curtain, and she is young and beautiful and lovely. And then right then and right there, they celebrate their marriage together. So at the end of the story, this very inappropriate story the wife of Bath is told, this young knight who has sexually assaulted this woman, his punishment for it is basically a young, very attractive wife who will never, ever, ever cheat. At the end of the story, the wife of Bath says a little prayer. Dear Jesus, give us husbands that are good in bed. And if they're stingy with their money, then just give them the plague. That is the wife of Bath's tale. Then we read the Franklin's Tale, which you were given on a handout. The Franklin's Tale is a cute little story about a knight called Arviragus and a lady named Dorigen and a squire named Aurelius. At the beginning of the story, Arviragus falls in love with Dorigen. They pledge to one another they will get married. They become betrothed, which basically means engaged. He has to leave for England for a year. He leaves for England for a year, and as soon as he's gone, Dorigen's very, very sad, and she's moping, and her friends are trying to get her to stop with the pity party. They get her out of her house, and she goes for walks, and as she's walking along the coast, she sees all these very big rocks jutting up out of the water, and she's very fearful for when Arviragus comes back on the ship. What if he is slammed into those rocks and he dies? So having finally left her house just makes her sadder. So she leaves there feeling sad. She goes to the garden where everybody is just dancing, having a good time. She doesn't see Arviragus there among the dancers, and she's even more sad. So here she is, just very, very much moping. Aurelius is at this gathering where everyone's dancing, and he has had feelings for her for some time, but he has not approached her because she was promised to someone else. But here at this gathering, he just can't help himself, and Aurelius, the squire, approaches her and asks her if she can love him, if there's any way that she can love him. He just loves her so much and wants to be with her. She immediately says no. There's no way. I'm betrothed. I am promised to someone else. But, if you can make these rocks disappear out of the sea, then I'll be with you. And I give you that on my word of honor. Well, she says that knowing that no one can make rocks disappear, but she does say it, and she gives her word of honor. So Aurelius, knowing the rocks can't really be moved, spends some months really just kind of depressed and sad. There's no way that he can be with this woman. So he just he's moping and he's very sad. He talks to his brother about it. The only person he tells about all this is his brother. His brother had been at university, and he knew that there are people there, he knows people there that have practiced magic. So the brother suggests, let's go to university, and they go to the university at Orleans, and as they're approaching, this young man comes up to them and says, I know exactly why you're here. You're here because there's a woman that you love and you want to be with. And he's proving that he kind of has magical arts, that he knows knows these things without even having a conversation with them. Then he takes them to his house and he shows them some very elaborate images of a forest full of wild deer and this hunt and these hawks on a fair river and knights fighting in battle. And the most powerful of these visions that he gives Aurelius is Aurelius himself dancing with Dorigen. He really believes he is dancing with this young woman. And then he claps his hands and all the visions disappear, and they realize they've never left this man's room. So being convinced he really could perform a magic trick, like make rocks disappear, he promises to pay this man 1,000 pounds if he can make the rocks disappear. So they leave and they go back to Brittany, and this magician gets to work and manages the moon and the tides and all these things, and he makes the rocks disappear, or at least seem like they are not there, and it will look that way for a week or two. Right around that time, Arviragus is scheduled to come back, to arrive back from England. He does. Aurelius has accomplished this task by paying someone to accomplish the task. He is ready to go tell old girl that the rocks have disappeared. When Arviragus gets to Dorigen, she is very upset because she has now been told that she has to marry Aurelius. He made the rocks disappear, exactly what she said. She said it on her word of honor. She doesn't know what to do. Arviragus, a very, very honorable knight, tells her she has to keep her word. You gave your word. A promise is a promise, and nothing. If we don't have our word, nothing else matters. So she tells her she basically has to marry Aurelius because she said she would. She goes to Aurelius. She tells him the whole thing, that Arviragus is insisting that she marry him. Aurelius feels terrible that he's manipulated this whole situation and done something so dishonorable. So when he realizes how honorable, how gentle that Arviragus was being, and that how gentle Dorigen was being, she was going to keep her word, he absolves her of having to marry him, releases her from her promise to where she does not have to marry him. And Arviragus and Dorigen are married, and they basically live happily ever after. Here at this point, Aurelius himself is in a bind because he's 1,000 pounds in debt to the magician, to the clerk, the student at the university. So he goes to him and says, look, I don't have the 1,000 pounds. You know, I can pay you a little time, whatever. And the clerk's like, well, didn't I perform the task, like I said? And he tells the clerk the whole story about Arviragus and Dorigen, and Arviragus and Dorigen are very honorable, and I let them out of the bet and the promise, and the clerk feels like, well, he should do something honorable too, and he lets Aurelius out of his promise to pay him 1,000 pounds. At the end of the story, all four of these people have shown a great deal of honor or gentility in the very much the code of chivalry and whatnot. At the end of the story, Franklin turns to the other characters and says, let's discuss who is the most honorable. Lastly is the Miller's Tale, which we actually did today in this class. I hope that you were here today and that you kind of absorbed all that. It was a lot of details, but here I will go through that quickly and maybe just as the last little bit of review before you take your test tomorrow. It is the Miller's Tale. It is more like a bar story than a religious story. The Miller just kind of interrupts and says that he should be able to tell his story, and even though he's very drunk, in fact, because he's so drunk, he shouldn't hold him accountable for anything that he says. It's the story of John, this very wealthy carpenter who has recently married this 18-year-old woman, a very attractive woman named Allison. He's very nervous that she's going to embarrass him by cheating on him, making him a cuckold in the town. So he keeps her kind of caged away, keeps it locked away so there's less chances she'll cheat. He actually owns a boarding house, and one of the people that lives in his house, rents a room from him, is Nicholas, a young man named Nicholas, student at the university. Nicholas approaches her and tells her he really wants to be with her, and she tells him, no, get away, I can't be with you, rape. She screams rape, and he can tell she's not very serious, so he continues to try to talk to her, to be with him, and basically he talks her into having an affair with him, cheating on her husband with Nicholas. She agrees as long as he can come up with a plan to trick the carpenter, and the carpenter would never find out because she likes being married to him because he has a lot of money. So they agree they're going to do this thing. Meanwhile, in town, there's someone called Absalom. Absalom also has a crush on Allison. Absalom works at the church, and he tries to talk to all the young ladies, but he really has a fondness for Allison. That will be important later. So Nicholas comes up with a plan, and what he basically does is go up into his room, spend all day Saturday in his room, never comes out, spends all day Sunday, never comes out, until the end of that day when finally John the carpenter sends the servant up to get him, find out what's wrong, what's going on that Nicholas wouldn't come out of his room for 2 days. They knock and they knock and they knock. He doesn't answer. When finally they look in and they finally actually break the door down, Nicholas is just staring up the sky, pretending to be in a very deep trance, pretending he's, getting a vision from God. He wakes up, pretends to wake up, and says to John, the world is going to end very soon. In fact, we are going to be flooded twice as bad as Noah's flood. John's immediate reaction is, poor Allison, I don't want her to get hurt. Is there any way we can save her? And Nicholas is like, we can save her. I have a plan that we can save her and you and me. Why don't you get 3 tubs, hang them from the ceiling of the barn, equip them with, food and drink and whatnot for a day. In fact, have axes. And whenever the water rises in this terrible flood on Monday, we can just hit the rope and drift out and we'll survive. The rest of the world will die, but we will live. We can save Allison. And John is so gullible. He's so easy to trick. And he just goes along with this and thinks this is all very possible. So he does just that. He gets 3 tubs. He hangs them. He builds little ladders so they can climb up. And they do on that Monday. They climb up that night to the ceiling and hang from these tubs. John, the older man that he is, falls very much asleep. They can tell that he's in a good sleep because he's snoring And then right then, John and Nicholas and Allison go down to John's bedroom and have lots of physical intimacy and whatnot. They watch television together. The next morning, while they are, just tired and whatnot, someone comes to the window, and it's someone called Absalom. Absalom decides he's going to try to talk to this woman because he's learned that John is not around. At least no one's seen him in a couple of days. So he thinks that this is a good time to go knock on the window and try to get Allison to give him at least a kiss. If I can at least get a kiss from her, I'll be so happy. Well, he goes. He knocks on the window. She's not at all polite to him. She tells him, bottom of page 4, get away from that window, you jack fool. I don't want to be with you, basically, she says. And she's not very nice any at all. But then he just continues to persist. Please, at least come to the window. Just give me one kiss. If you give me one kiss, I'll go away. She tells Nicholas, watch this. I'm going to play a joke on him. She goes to the window. It's very dark. Absalom sticks his face into the window. She sticks her buttocks out of the window. And instead of kissing her on the mouth, he kisses her on the buttocks. And he's very, very embarrassed. She immediately slams the window. He hears Allison and Nicholas making fun of him, laughing at him for having played this trick on him. So he's very angry, and at this moment he's over like trying to get a kiss from her and whatnot. He just wants revenge. Bottom page 4, the end of page 4, he decides to go down to Gervie's, the local blacksmith. He asks Gervie's to borrow that red-hot poker that's in the fireplace, and he goes back carrying a very, very hot piece of iron, hot on one end, knocks on the window, tells her, look, if you'll just give me one kiss, I have a gold ring for you. I'll give you a ring, hoping that she'll come for some jewelry. This time, Nicholas decides he wants to play a joke on him and have Absalom kiss his butt. So he goes to the window. As soon as Absalom sticks his face in the window, Nicholas sticks his butt out the window, farts right into Absalom's face. Absalom, after having someone fart in his face, is holding a red-hot poker. He sticks it onto Nicholas's buttocks, sets his butt basically on fire. Just a whole bunch of the skin comes off onto the red-hot poker. He immediately begins to scream, water, water, please give me water, because he feels like he's on fire. Screaming water makes John wake up, who's still hanging from the ceiling, basically in the barn. And as soon as he hears that, he wakes up, hits the rope, thinking the flood has started, and he falls all the way to the floor, and it causes quite the ruckus. As all that's going on, with all that noise, the neighbors come running, and they see basically John on the floor, like with a broken arm, sees two tubs hanging. As John tries to explain what's going on, Allison and Nicholas kind of stop him, and they just tell all the neighbors he's crazy. He is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, because he's been trying to talk us into being ready for Noah's flood, that Noah's flood was going to happen again. So we humored him. We got up there in these tubs, and this is what has happened. Basically, from that point forward in the town, John himself is a laughingstock to all the neighbors, and everyone just thinks he is a buffoon, even though sadly he is the nicest and most honorable out of all of these people. That, my friends, is a quick little review of the Miller's Tale. Again, it wouldn't hurt you to skim back through these stories, reread them even, to be ready for the test tomorrow. There will be a lot of details and whatnot. But it is 4 stories with 4 different sets of characters, and if you spend a little time with these stories, I think you will be ready. Thanks very much for listening, and hopefully for reading. Okay, bye.